Excellencies, we are so pleased to having you join us at the Qatar Economic Forum. I want to kick right off and talk about the elephant in the room, which is the supply disruptions, the economic impact of what's happening, the invasion of Ukraine. And that is a major reason that a lot of economies in this region are looking to diversify. And this panel, in a way, demonstrates some of the most and least affected by this crisis. So, Minister Maait, I want to talk to you first about this, because Egypt gets 80% of its grain from Russia and Ukraine in the past. Where are we? Are you in crisis mode with respect to trying to maintain financial stability at this point?
Thank you very much for the question. And it is really, yes, this war in Ukraine has given us a very hard time for three dimensions. One is external, the second one is food security, and the third one is fiscal discipline. With regard to external, when we used to buy 1 ton of wheat for $200, $230, now you have to pay $480 to $500. Given that Egypt is the largest importer of wheat in this world, with more than 12 million tons a year, it's a pressure. In addition to that, Ukraine and Russia represent more than 35% of our tourism industry, which means that with this war, we lost significant revenue for the tourism. Also oil prices, which is now around $120 plus or minus. All of these put us under external pressure, and we have to manage it. The second one is food security, that we are importing wheat, we are importing corn, we are importing cooking oil, and we were relying heavily on Ukraine for cooking. So we have to find alternative markets in order to get what we need. So this is also a pressure, because now we lost, for example, totally the Ukraine market. So with food security, which will be two dimensions. One dimension to ensure that the quantity this country needs is brought. The second one is the cost. You need to offer it to the public at which cost, because it's a very high cost, which will negatively impact the living standard of our people with this high level of inflation. The third one is the fiscal. All of this will put the fiscal balances under pressure, because we have to pay more, so we have to find more financing. Now, more financing at a higher cost, because the cost of financing is accelerating. So all of these together, you have to manage it in order to, get some balance between what the budget can and what the public and our people can carry. Because otherwise, with a country like Egypt now is 104 million people, we have to take this very seriously.
Yeah, it's painful to feel this inflation in your pocketbook. Minister Al-Kuwari, I mean, we're seeing 5% year-on-year inflation here. I mean, that's nothing compared to some other places in the world. But has there been an impact from the crisis essentially on things in Qatar, on buying things? Everything's imported. Where have you seen this effect?
Yes. Thank you, Simone. I'm pleased to be with you here today in this event. Of course, I mean, the inflation, actually, we need to go a little bit back in history. I mean, Qatar, has been, I would not say enjoying, because enjoying is not a good word, but maybe I need to think about another word. Enjoying, a deflationary position, for the last 2-3 years. Actually, and deflation is not good for economists, as you know.
Right.
You need to have some. But anyway, I mean, we had a deflation for the last 2-3 years. Inflation started from the middle of last year, from 2021, slowly, and it grew to 6% peak on December, on month. The full year was 2.5%, which is, again, manageable, because you have the average for the full year. Now, this year had relaxed to 4%, and then grow again to 4.7%. Food around 3.5%. We looked only to the food basket itself. What was the main driver for the growth in Qatar was the entertainment sector. And that's understandable because, what you had a lockdown for 2 years, and all of a sudden you had, tourism is up, and, traveling, and again, cinemas, everything going back. So this sector grew by 37%.
Okay, so less impact necessarily from the outside, more recovery from COVID to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, does this end? When does this end? Does this end after the World Cup, potentially?
Well, also the World Cup, of course, it will create, pressure on the demand side, so it will also create. But for us, I think, as you said, 4 and 5% today, everybody will say, good job,
At this point in time, yes.
Yes, because you are seeing other economies, even, advanced economies, going, north of 8, north of 9. So, for us, the inflation is there, and it's mainly an imported inflation, from Qatar. But also we have made so many strategies in the past that helped us to, weather storm, this kind of, momentarily pressures, comes here, like the food security program we have implemented, many years ago. Also, our fiscal policies, and we have a medium-term fiscal policy, so we're not very much in terms of responding to high revenues, that maybe not so stable. So we have been very disciplined, in our spending and our approach, and we have created the right policies that help us, to deal with this, ad hoc, conditions.
Yeah, let's get back to that discipline in just a second. But, Minister Maait, is there anything in retrospect, considering what we were seeing and the pressures you're facing, that you think you might have done to insulate Egypt, overall policy-wise, from some of the pressures on fuel prices, food prices, some $10 billion in revenue hit, I believe you've said, that might be coming down the pipe?
If I've got your question right, with regard to our policies to mitigate such pressure of this high-level inflation, and also with regard to the war in Ukraine. Let me say that we have to think about our people, because we think that there is a limit that the public can carry on a level of inflation. So we decided to share the cost of this temporary, we hope it will be temporary, period of high pressure. So given that cost of living in Egypt is started to be affected, particularly on most vulnerable and low-income people, which is 30 to 40 million Egyptians. So we have to give package to ease the pressure, and we did package of increasing salaries, increasing pension, increasing number of families on cash transfer, and also to increase the personal tax credit by 25%. And many of these packages we started 1st of April, last April. And also on the other side, we are trying also with economic sectors. For example, we decided to give subsidy to not to increase electricity, also to give subsidy on real estate taxes.
But this stuff is expensive. So, I mean, when do you expect that this inflationary period, 13% plus year-over-year inflation, when do you expect that to end? I mean, do we need a war in Europe to come to a close, or is there some other driver for you?
Look, my feeling is that the whole world at a crossroad. Either we save this earth and the human on this earth, or things will be accelerating and it will be more difficult for all of us. Look, if we cannot quickly find a solution, we have to be ready to hear that some people started to die from starving, from not finding food, from inability of a state to find hard currencies to provide medicine and medicine equipment and drugs. So it will not be one region. It will not be only Europe or Middle East or Africa. It will be the whole world. And you can start to see some of the implication started to emerge. We've heard about some countries who said, oh, I cannot pay off my debt. I've heard one country 2 days ago decided to give a holiday for its people because they cannot offer to buy oil for its people for the public transportation. And they said, cruise has to shut down, employees have to stay at home. We cannot buy oil for transportation because we don't have money. This is a stage. The second stage, which I'm expecting to come very soon, is to see that people, oh, there is no food. Oh, people will die because of starving. So we have to sit down together and see what we're going to deal with that, because it hasn't already started.
Happen? How soon is that? How does that happen?
Some countries will be able to deal with it. Some other will not be. But
yeah.
I don't believe that it will be one country or one region. It will be the whole world. It have to sit down together and try to put a strategy to address the situation in order to reduce the pressure. I talk about my country, Egypt. We are trying very hard to manage such a situation. I'll give you an example. Going to the capital market. 1 year ago, I used to go to the capital market to raise money 5 years at 3.8%. Now, it's impossible to go to the capital market to raise money at even 3 times this cost. So this is an example, and I think that we hope that things will improve in the coming period.
Well, when you're talking about kind of coming together, particularly the richer countries of the world coming together to support Egypt, emerging markets generally that are facing these pressures, we've seen Qatar talk about investments, new investments in Egypt specifically, as well as some other countries in the Gulf. I want to understand from you, Minister Al-Kuwari, is this meant as an attempt to promote financial stability mainly, or is this looking at, basement prices and seeing bargains?
Okay. Well, I mean, I agree with His Excellency, Dr. Mohamed, that, this global crisis will have to be tackled globally by all economies, and we should not, unfortunately, during COVID and during even the recent, war in Ukraine crisis, we have seen, people look me only and others, it's not an issue. But it's very important that I think the whole international community has to really put their hands together to make sure there are no country crises, there is no human crisis, that because the human crisis, the country crisis, it will come through everybody. Everybody will pay the price.
So that's kind of the rationale that's behind some of these new investments?
But definitely, the relationship with Egypt goes long in history, and, Qatar has been a key investor, in Egypt. We have, done so many commercial transactions covering all sectors, financial, real estate, you name it. And, and this relationship, this economic ties goes for many years. And and it will continue, these economic ties, and I don't want to say like this is, what do you call it, an assistant or help, because it's a purely commercial and economic. And of course, I think it's a win-win situation for both countries, and this will continue. I think the issue here, when you say assisting countries, it doesn't have to be assisting through just writing the check. It's all about investment, because speaking, to Dr. Mohamed and others, they want the investment, they want the FDI, this is the support, that can help. And again, from the other side also, we want the returns, we want, the commercial aspect. So it will have to be done in a win-win situations, but at the same time, when it comes to the global crisis, I think, and we're talking about countries unable to pay, starvations, hunger, poverty, this is a world, and I really love the title of the Bloomberg conference this year, equalizing recovery. So we need to really equalize. We don't want to have 30 countries recovering from crisis and then 150, going through issues. So we have to really worry about, and it's everybody's responsibility to put hands together and put the right policies. The international organizations like IMF, World Bank, everybody has to work together and join hands to really assist everybody and to have an equalized recovery of economical recoveries. Situation is not easy, and you mentioned, the Russia-Ukraine. The situation is beyond the Russia-Ukraine war. It's added to the problem, but these problems or this disparity in logistics and energy, everything, it was happening even before that. It's added to the problem, and I think now it's what we're having now. It's a COVID plus the war in Russia. I mean, the war in Ukraine is the result of these two impacts. But we have so many impacts that really resulted in this situation today, and we have to tackle it together.
Minister, I just want to, sorry for cutting you off there, but I just want to talk about, because Qatar has kind of been a seeming winner in this situation. There's so much money that's projected to come in to the country from LNG specifically, as well as other things. Do you take advantage of the situation to go issue more debt? I know we've talked about in the past potential for green bonds, or does the prospect of all this capital kind of concern you in a way?
Simone, see, I mean, we are working in a very strict, fiscal policy framework, a medium-term fiscal policy framework, and this fiscal policy framework, really based on different oil prices and different scenarios and different revenues. And what we do in each case, whether there is a surplus or there is a deficit. In the surplus, there is a very clear, system that where this surplus goes to QIA, goes to enhance the Qatar Central Bank reserves, goes to pay the debt. There is a way how to deal with everything, and we are, regardless if the oil price is 120 or it is $40. At the end of the day, the fiscal policy and the fiscal discipline is there, because our aim here is sustainability.
No issuance, or does it mean?
Well, I mean, if we see an opportunity, we will. I mean, regarding the green bond, I know that we talked about it, in an interview with the Bloomberg just recently. We are committed to this as part of our commitment to the ESG and to the national strategy for climate change and environmental. So we are committed to make a statement in this one that we are supporting, the green finance, and this is something we have done the paperwork, but unfortunately, as you know, interest rates went rocket high, and so it might become not so feasible to do with this, especially for someone who doesn't need the money. So we're going to just see the right moment, to go ahead with the issuance, and the debt will issue it sometimes not only because we need the money, but because we need to. There is a system, when you are in the debt market, you need to have yield care. You need to create yield care for your.
Well, let me pick up a thread that you just mentioned there, which is ESG and climate change generally, because COP27 this year, and we only have a moment here, is going to be hosted by Egypt. You've said a lot of the focus is probably going to be on funding climate change response and climate change damage for poorer countries. Is there a message you want to send to the rich countries of the world about what they need to do, Minister Maait?
Okay, I have a view about this particular. My view is that developing countries now are asked to adopt policies for mitigation and adoption for the climate change and the damage happened to the earth, which is okay. But at the same time, these countries have ambition for their citizens, for their countries, and such policies will cost them. A lot of promises have been made.
Right.
Nothing has been implemented. Even when we said, okay, we will go for green financing in order to finance green economy, in order to go for a just transition.
Right.
I give you the example of Egypt. We decided to go for green bond as the first country in the Middle East and might be in Africa as well. What was the advantage? Nothing. It was the opposite. I have to do a lot of additional work, which costed me more than the traditional Eurobond. So, what am I going to do? You ask me to have a cost in order to transit to renewables, to climate change, to blah, 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 blah. So, again, what we are trying to say to the world, is it a time for implementing your transition? And this is the reason why for COP27, Egypt adopted Together for Implementation, for implementing the promises. $100 billion, $130 billion, nothing has implemented yet, okay? And many countries saying, okay, if you are telling me that I'm stopping this type of investment because it's not friendly, environmental, and all of that, what is the alternative? I am ambitious for my people. I've talked to many African countries. They said, oh, we cannot comply unless we come up with an agreement, just a transition agreement, in order to take into consideration how we get financing and achieve financing. And let me say, we are trying even in Sharm el-Sheikh in September 7 to 9 to get together all the African ministers of finance, environment, and economy to come up with something unified to present it to the COP27 about, for example, some countries saying, okay, let us say formal debt for sustainable environment. Can we go for that? Are the international financial institutions ready for that? Are governments who now talking about that are ready for that? If they are, let us come and sit down, because many developing countries will have to pay high cost for that, and they don't have financing. This is one. The second one, are the world ready to offer a cheap financing for green financing? Can I go to the capital market? I say, if I go for Eurobond, traditional one, at this cost, if I go for green, it will be at a lower cost, 100 basis points or 150 basis points. It's not existing now.
Right.
So we need to come and to see that if you want green financing, show me your seriousness about a cheap and affordable green financing.
Your Excellency, I think you're going to end up getting this message.
I agree with Dr. Mohamed. Usually the green financing is less, usually for any, but depending, of course, on the country risks. But my remarks here, I think, very important point, and again, just elaborating on what Dr. Mohamed was saying, I think we have to be very realistic in our, ESG plans, ESG ambition, and not to put a pressure, in the current, situations, because, we talked this morning about the energy, and the energy, prices was self-created by not investing, in the traditional fuel, and because we're not thinking about the transit, we're thinking about just
getting there.
The transformation, and this is very serious. I think we have to be very realistic. Everybody, of course, we have to worry about the environment, we have to worry about sustainability, we have to worry about generations to come. But we have to worry about also the current generation today,
and the current situation right now.
Current situations, I think we have to put very realistic plans, and again, worry about the transition here, because we don't want to starve, the current generation for the future generation. We don't have to, this is very simple. And, again, yes, the commitment for the green and everything, we all believe in it, and we should support it, and Qatar have national vision, for transformation. But at the end of the day, we have to be very realistic in our goals, objectives, and targets.
Well, I would love to pick this up with you, but with you both later this year ahead of COP27. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but this has been a fantastic look at the pressures, the impact of some of what we're seeing on the world, on this region's economies. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone.